You, yeah, Facebook forced me to go through some sort of a ridiculous security verification there. They locked my account for some reason, and they didn't even accept the first attempt that I made to log in. But all is said, all is done, all is good, all is well. If something happens, we can communicate through Skype here. I mean, excuse me, through Facebook here, and I do have your workoutaroundmyday.com website up, which I'll probably be using as a little bit of a guide throughout this show. But
Perfect.
starting off, I don't know if a lot of people have heard about you. I mean, do you have a household name? I don't know. I mean, I didn't know about you until before seeing you at that real rally going on at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. a couple Sundays ago, which was an event to remember. I really, really enjoyed it. And
Yes.
great speech you gave there. I'll give you the chance to talk to like regurgitate your speech again and give a nice version of it again. But first, who is Cordelia Gaffar? What does she do? What is your life story? What happened to you in your life that causes you to do the things that you are doing in the present day and plan to do in the future? And also, in addition to that, you can also give out your information. I gave your website, but you can give it out again, and also your contact info, your blog, and everything else. So, who you are, what you do, your life story, contact info, you got the floor.
Okay, great, great. So, yes, I am Cordelia Gaffar. I am an author, speaker, and I found it work out around my day. It was something very gradual over a period of 15 years. It was kind of unintentional. It happened that with my second pregnancy, it was very complicated. I was on bed rest, and it ended in me gaining like over 60 pounds. Now, contrast that to my first pregnancy where I only gained 25 pounds. I lost the weight like within 6 weeks of the baby, of my daughter being born, and everything was normal, went back to work. But this time, I had to stop working before the baby was born, and then it was complicated getting back to work. And then my baby, he didn't actually have any physical problems. I was grateful for that, but he was very high maintenance compared to my daughter. So workout around my day for me back then wasn't even called workout around my day. It was called get through my day and not go crazy. And try and be centered and peaceful for my family and try to get it back together, because I wasn't meant to be a stay-at-home mom. I was meant to be a corporate accountant, which is what I was doing. And I was desperately trying to get back to doing that. And so for me, I had to embrace a lot of things that I hadn't intended to embrace, like being a stay-at-home mom for about 6 months after, or up until and after my son was born, and you know, not uh, being overwhelmed with depression. Which when I went to my 6-week appointment with my OB, she told me I was actually suffering postpartum depression and wanted to give me a prescription for that. And that was a wake-up call for me, because I'm not a pill popper. I don't believe in using pharmaceuticals for anything. I believe that everything our body needs grows outside. And if it doesn't grow outside, then it's a matter of changing your practices, the way you breathe, the way you move. And that is just who I've always been and what I've always believed. So that was a wake up call for me. And I said, okay, so I just need to do things differently. That's what she's really saying. And I threw away the prescription. I went home and I got into my books, because in 2002, like, we didn't Google search as often as we do now. So I started researching how to handle depression, how to organize better, what foods you should eat when you're, nursing, and those kind of things. And I knew, I thought I knew a lot about nutrition, and I thought that I understood many things, but, we're always learning and we're always evolving. And what I found out was, for me, uh, and in general for women, when you are incubating or growing a male child, one thing that we're not taught is that we need to have a lot of vitamin B. I mean, people know that now, but back then they really didn't. You need to have more vitamin B and offset it with D for the production of testosterone in the boy's developing body, and so that the mother's hormonal system is not overwhelmed by that. And that's usually the result. That's how you get more intense postpartum depression. The other thing that I personally had was I always wanted everything to be organized and perfect. And with a toddler and a baby, it's impossible to stay on top of the cleaning in the house, right? So that was another thing that I let go. And I chose to just stop and be present in the moment and not worry about, what things look like or how, if the dishes were done, if the laundry was done, and all those kind of things that really don't matter. You have two small lives and two small people that need a lot of nurturing, and you yourself need a lot of nurturing. And if you just give yourself into the love and the compassion there, then it's just, a much more beautiful thing, a much more peaceful experience, and it really opens that door to gratitude. So that was me shutting down my inner chatter. So in the end, now all these years later, I'm going to fast forward a little bit to 2010 when I found out that I was pregnant with my fifth child. I was worried because I had really come to a system that worked. The end of the story with my son, 6 months later, I lost all the 63 pounds, and I was exercising with the kids, and I had gone back to work for a little while, and then decided that actually I want to homeschool or whatever. And so I started homeschooling and became heads of moms groups and all that kind of thing. So then I got into the groove. We had 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. Life was great. Then I found out that, oh my gosh, we're going to have a fifth child. I don't know if I can keep this up. Am I really capable of maintaining a peaceful household and, my physique, because I had gotten, to a point where it wasn't a thing. Have a baby, weight goes away. I'm back to normal emotionally, physically. The kids are healthy. Everything is just running like a perfect clock. So I needed to re-examine and reconnect with myself. And I created a blog during that pregnancy called Living in Harmony Motherhood. It's no longer live, but most of that is when I started documenting my journey. And that resulted actually in 2 of my 3 books. It resulted in the first book that I wrote, How to Get Started, the guide to work out around my day, and then, which the second version of that book is Work Out Around My Day, the only health guide that moms need. And then I wrote a pregnancy book called Nutritional Hacks for Pregnancy. So that all came or evolved out of that blog. And I basically just documented how I shut down my inner chatter, the foods I was eating, how I embraced feeding my children and potty training, nursing, the challenges she had with eczema, and how I created different skincare products for her. My fifth child was a girl. And people were reading my blog, and I had a whopping 10 subscribers, and they were very faithful, and I thought it was great. And then, people started telling me, you should really write a book. You should help other people with this. This is such great content. And at that time, I wasn't ready for that. I was just really supporting myself. And I just wanted to get through my day, and whoever happened by my blog or whatever moms were in my mom's group that I could help out personally, it was completely just a labor of love for me. Then in 2013, I found out again we had a pleasant surprise of a sixth child, and I was now at this point 41. And I was really worried. I was like, okay, so this is it. I'm definitely not coming back from this one. I'm not so much worried about the peaceful portion, and I know that I can still maintain, and that part's good. But as far as my physical body, I thought that all was lost, and I was just gonna, you know, be overweight the rest of my life. Now, I, in subsequent pregnancies, I never gained 60 pounds again. It was always around 40, 45 pounds, which is perfectly fine. And, they tell you when you go to the doctor that, you shouldn't gain more than 25, I think, to 40 pounds. But I gained like 40 to 45 pounds, and that's totally fine. But anyway, with me being in my 40s and all those things, I just knew that it wouldn't things wouldn't go back in order. And in fact, after having my sixth child, I said, I realized that I had, I was continuing with the blog, but at this point I said, you know, I could really help a lot of people with this. And so I looked into how to start a business and how to get my message out there further. And that's when I started working with a business coach. And we happened upon the name when I described to her what I want to do. That's when the name Workout Around My Day came. And so I registered it as a business, and then I started coaching people. And through coaching people and everything, I came up with a program that other people outside of myself could use. And that year, at the end of 2015, I published my first book in December. And then, ever since then, I've just been working with more people and I guess publishing more books. And last year, I joined a live stream organization called Perry 10K, which is international, because I thought, well, doing workshops locally is great, but I want to really impact more women, more moms, and let them know that, it's okay to nourish yourself and, sweet talk yourself. And we're our worst critics and everything. So I wanted to improve my speaking. And most people would probably join a Toastmasters, but I decided to do live streaming because my intention was to work from home with my own business. And I started live streaming last March. And now, in this past year, I've learned so many things because it's not only just a live streaming community, it's also an online mastermind. I've met people from all over the world that are just amazing and awesome. And I've learned a lot about business. I've learned about a lot about, what works, what doesn't work. And, and so that is, what's kind of propelled me. That's how I met Diane, one of the uh, people that I met in one of the local business organizations had started, she wanted to put together a Can You See Me conference. And, so I got connected with other women that want to help other women in other ways. And the Can You See Me was about, let's see beyond our painted smiles in our face. Who is this woman and what are her needs, and how much are we the same, and how much can we propel each other? And I met Diane Hawthorne there, who introduced me to Melissa Feek, who was the one who organized the Peace, Love, and Unity conference that I was part of at Lincoln Memorial in April. And, it's just kind of been since October when I've really started to put myself out there between the live streaming last March and all that. And then last October, trying to just connect with other women. I did another conference in November, Empower Your Mindset, with another group of women. And then I've done a telesummit this year, the Whole Woman Summit. And I've applied this year for 2 other speaking engagements, one locally and one internationally. So I'm just waiting to hear back from those applications. I guess it's going to be probably this summer before I know. But, my overall message is that through self-nurturing, moms can support themselves. And self-nurturing is not, about getting manicures and pedicures. It's really getting a hold on sweet talking yourself. We don't need external sources. We don't need our spouses. I'll have to tell you, my spouse wasn't, or and still isn't, the most um, supportive when it comes to words. And that's not the nature of all men, because my dad wasn't like that, but several men are that way. And and women, a lot of women, their love language is either verbal communication. You want to hear certain words, or it's tactile. You're expecting, to be touched in a certain way. And, when you don't have that kind of support over a period of time, women seem to up their negative inner chatter, and and it results in the way they take care of themselves, whether it's just overeating to emotionally compensate, or not exercising because they're not important, but they'll take their kids to soccer practice and football practice and basketball practice, and even, teach their kids to ride bike, but they wouldn't themselves get on a bike or even think about holding a basketball or kicking a soccer ball. And, and so between the poor choices, the poor self-image, the poor inner chatter, you go from this amazing, vibrant, knowing, intelligent human being, right, who is doing such an amazing job in the world, because women are the pillars of society. We not only incubate the babies and grow them in our bodies, but we also teach them and nurture them and love them and make sure that they're eating right and sleeping on time and all the things that we don't do for ourselves. And so I learned early on with my son, like I said, he was high maintenance, with me losing the 60 pounds in 6 months. It wasn't even about, I found through that journey, it wasn't so much about the weight as it was about the inner chatter. And once I shut that down and allowed myself to embrace and love my life and my opportunity to be with my children every moment, because my husband wasn't supportive emotionally, but financially, sure, I could stay home and not have to work for periods of time. And so that is a blessing. And with along with that, learning about the foods that nourish my body help me to produce the best milk for my baby, and help to shut down that negative inner chatter, because sometimes we eat too much of something, and it depends on your nutritional type. If you are, some people can have more carbohydrates than others, but I'm not one of those people. If I eat too much sugar, I will turn into like a crazy person. So I learned how to do things in moderation for my body to support myself emotionally, physically, and to support my my child. Since I was nursing, and so people looked at me and they were like, "Wow, you're so amazing." My youngest is 3 years old, and I still haven't lost my baby weight. And I thought to myself, that doesn't make sense. There's no reason why, you should hold on to weight that long. Is it really about the weight? It's not. And I I had my our third child was 22 months, not quite 2 years, later. And again, I'm getting older and everything, but still, it took me about 7 or 8 months to lose weight. And then the fourth child, it took me about 9 months. So it got longer and longer. And I think I capped out at around 11 months, but never more than a year. So if your youngest child is 3 years old and you still have quote unquote baby weight, then there's something else going on. It's not about the food. It's not about exercising, because a lot of people, they want to lose weight, and they, oh, I don't have a gym membership, or I do have a gym membership, or I have time, or I don't have time, or I'm going to go to Zumba class, or I'm not going to go to Zumba class. But exercise at the end of the day is really only about 10% or, of your weight gain or weight loss. I would say another 10 or 20% would be mindset. And then after that, I mean, it's all about the food, right? But it's the mindset that drives your choices. So if you choose consistently not to sleep, if you choose consistently not to eat the right food, and you know that the way your body responds to certain foods results in, certain behaviors, like you're constantly eating cake, but you know that your body doesn't like the frosting, right? And it makes you sick, but you're eating it to compensate for that conversation you couldn't have with your husband or your partner, or you're eating it because your kid won't listen to you, or you're eating it because you all the laundry isn't folded up and it's midnight and you just too tired, you know? So in that situation, what I recommend to my clients is, okay, first of all, the frosting disagrees with your body. Never mind that sugar's not good for you or you shouldn't be eating it at midnight. It's not good for your body, so just don't eat it. Second of all, by midnight, you should be sleeping. And that's another thing. If you're not sleeping on time, whatever weight you're trying to lose, it's going to make it harder because at midnight, that's when your body needs to start working and detoxifying from your day. But you didn't give it a chance to do that because you didn't go to sleep at 9:30, because that if you start sleeping at 9:30, that's when your body gets a chance to calm down so that it can get back to work, because you would have completed at least one sleep cycle before midnight so that your body can help you to naturally lose weight just by sleeping. And a lot of people I've worked with, just getting them to a place where they are stopping eating at a certain time or having a calm down or a nighttime routine, they'll lose weight just by sleeping on time. Then introduce what foods work for their body, then that's another layer. And then introduce, oh, you don't really hate exercising, because that comes up for some people. Um, just integrating how you can make it fun. If you're a stay-at-home mom, there's so many opportunities to exercise or work out around your day. I mean, I have never had a gym membership. I used to go to Zumba class, but it didn't fit in, I have 6 kids, right? So once all their activities start, I wasn't able to do it on a regular basis. But, so exercising on a regular basis, you can do it when you're folding laundry. I mean, just do a Google search. There's so many different ways to exercise during your day, just being deliberate with your movement. There's something called Feldenkrais, and that talks about being more connected with your body and your neurological system. So all these kind of things help. Um, and there's just, so many opportunities. Now, I mean, I guess even if you work outside the home, there are even more, because you're not with your kids. You don't have to worry about where they are, where they're going to be. And, you have longer stretches of time, like lunch hour. You take half the hour for eating and whatever, and the other half of the hour, you could maybe even go to the gym at your office, or, take a walk or take a jog or whatever. So, those are a lot of different opportunities if you look for them. Um, to get into my speech, I was chosen to talk about unity. And that the great thing about that is part of my living in harmony motherhood, I felt that I I'm homeschooling, so the other part of my mission in life is to make sure that my kids grow up to be, um, great sources for society. And just, I want every one of my children to really support humanity in the best way possible. And that means that they have to bring their light to the world and not be a source of darkness. And so this year, some of the things I've done is I'm part of a couple of other live streaming communities. One is World Black History on Periscope, and another one is a YouTube community in Wellness Warriors. And during the month of March, which, as you know, is International Women's Month, on International Women's Day, my YouTube about sisterhood was whitelisted. So I spoke specific to, I'm Muslim, so I spoke about how the hijab is always been a symbol of sisterhood, and how it's perceived, is been it's been kind of, it's a complete misconception, because part of what slaves were required to do and was to cover their heads, but in a way that was a protection because they were working in the sun. Some of them worked inside, but in another way, many of them came from a culture that was modesty, and they wanted to cover their heads. So it wasn't a bad thing, but we're all, at the end of the day, we're all sisters and brothers in humanity, and recognizing that we offer so much in all of our differences to the world is again something to embrace and to unify under, and not something to say, oh, you're less or you're more because you're different. You're, in my speech, I start out by saying just the word unity. I want to dissect the meaning for you. Individually, we are gifted with talents, blessings, and energy. Collectively, we are a powerful civilization bursting with potential to transform the world. That is what I believe. And I talked about the meetup that I had gone to. This woman who had started the Can You See Me meetup, we had met just the day before my speech, and we were speaking into the vision to expand leadership in our communities, and that was really the intention. But when we got to talking, we bonded over something really unexpected, which was a sisterhood, right? It always comes back to the sisterhood. And what I said in the speech was, you see, in order to serve your community as a leader, you have to deal with the undertow of your heart. Our hearts united in the realness of shedding the facade of the strong woman. Yes, as you lead, you have to be strong through compassion. And compassion is an art painted with our experiences. That is our guide and talent. And our world is driven by beauty, science, and innovation. And we have artists and farmers and scientists. And artists can create, but with no one to enjoy may not be fulfilled, although it does not diminish the quality of the artwork, yet it can make the artist's life meaningless. And then I recounted when I went to Bangladesh, I met several amazing people there, but there are just a few who stood out. There was a young girl, and she made pillowcases. I think she was about 12. And she embroidered them. So she actually made the pillowcases, and then she made this embroidery. And I thought it was just amazing, because the last time I had seen embroidery like that, it was my grandmother showing it to me. And my grandmother was born in 1905. So obviously she's no more with us, but it's definitely a lost art here. And so this little girl, she was about 12, she gave me a set upon her mother's request, and her mother gave it to me. And she was just a little bit shy, kind of saying, like, oh, she's still learning. And, to me, I was looking at this pillowcase. So it was black and coral fabric that she had combined together, and that was the main background. And then she took golden thread and made daisies. Now it was very clear to me that they were daisies, but she didn't use the green for the leaves. And I thought, well, maybe that's what her mom's talking about. But this golden matrix of daisies, it was very clear, even without the green indication for the stem or the leaves, that the only thread she could have used with a backdrop of coral and black is only the gold thread, because otherwise the green would make you lose the sense of the flowers. So while her mom, I felt, couldn't see the value of her artwork, I I feel like that's the way we view our life with farmers. Like, we just don't understand how much they offer to us. Like, without farmers growing food, we wouldn't be able to eat. So along with that, farmers, they have to have some kind of way to transport the food. And I'm part of a CSA, and so I understand the ins and outs of being able to transport or not being able to transport, or selling over state lines and that kind of thing. Um, and we need also scientists, especially in this time and age, um, and they can create great ways to solve problems like flooding or irrigation for dry areas. And but without sharing that knowledge with people in flood zones or deserts, people could perish. But then when we have artists who can brighten someone's day, life has more meaning for both those people, for the artist and for anyone enjoying the art. The farmer who has a network of distributors to send her harvest into towns and markets can help people to have fresh produce on a regular basis, or meat, or whatever it is that they offer. The scientist who can teach her flooding control or irrigation process to areas in need can prevent hunger, death, and disease in the world. And, it was really this trip in 2013 to Dhaka. We were really only there because my father-in-law had died, but I learned so much about the world. And what impressed me the most is how the neighbors got along, And by American standards, they were completely, impoverished, right? They didn't have anything. But I mean, we were also in areas, just in, full disclosure, where there were people that had a lot. There's a lot of disparity there. So you have like really, really poor people and really, really rich people side by side. But anyway, so the very, very poor people, I noticed, were also extremely talented, intelligent, gifted, but the biggest gift they had was love, and compassion. So my mother-in-law, she had some neighbors, and they would bring, fresh chicken, like literally fresh chicken, to the house. And sometimes they would have already cooked it, or sometimes they would just, bring the chicken. And there were others that had fruits and vegetables, because the cool thing about a tropical place like that is they actually have like mangoes, bananas, guavas, and pomegranates growing in their gardens, and that's stuff that we have to import, but it grows there. And even the poorest people are rich in that way. And And then there was a woman who she could weave fabric, and I still cannot just, it's so amazing. I still have it. She could weave fabric and she could sew the fabric. That's like a no-brainer for them, right? But for us, we have to go to the fabric store, buy the fabric, and then we have to learn how to sew. I mean, I learned how to sew from my grandmother, but you know, so she made like a handmade, hand-woven outfit for my baby, and that was really amazing. And so I saw that, they had the blessing and compassion of connection, and that was their commerce, and that is something that we don't really see around here. So I shared all those examples and images to just show the power of unity and how together we are one. And there's no you without me. And there has to be an us to survive. And, my final point was that I am the daughter of two civil rights activists. Like, that wasn't their first job, right? My dad was ultimately like a judge, and my mom, she did a lot of charity work. But they, they were part of the marches. They didn't actually come to the Lincoln Memorial, but they did march with Martin Luther King in Chicago. And I'm the great granddaughter of an Anglican priest, and my great grandmother was an educator. And, he immigrated from Barbados, and she was the daughter of an immigrant. Well, I guess actually her grandfather was from Scotland, but all the same, she was recognized as, the granddaughter of this plantation owner, and who had taken her grandmother, who was a slave, as his second wife when his white wife died. And and then I myself, I've converted obviously from being Anglican. I was raised Episcopalian, um, and I'm African American, but I married a Bengali immigrant. So, I always tell my kids, we have the entire world in our bloodstream, so we have to unify with everybody else. And we're the product of many cultures, religions, and values, and truly the definition of unity, if we allow it. And I told about my heritage and background so that we can all shed this view of ethnocentrism and embrace the concept that there's only one race. We're all human. And the value of our humanness is all our differences. In the Quran, it says that Allah created all of us different to know the magnificence of our Lord and to desire to know one another, so that we can say Subhanallah, which means glory be to God, because it was all of His creating all of us so that we find each other and support each other and work together and take care of all the rest of His creation, the plants, the animals, and each other ultimately. And the lasting remark that I wanted people to remember is just, I encourage them to stand up in that moment and really fill themselves up, their beings up, with what it felt like to be there and the energy from that day. And then, really to encourage and propel themselves to go away from this event with the intention to unify with others, to be like a true neighbor to your neighbor, to be a true brother or sister to your brethren and sisterin in humanity, because there are way too many people on this planet for us not to get along. We're 7 billion people, and it's because we all need each other. We're not all here to not take care of each other. So um, that that is really, the what my speech was and what drew me to the event. The beautiful spirit and love that is Diane. And I didn't really know Melissa, but just trusting um, Diane's heart and her viewpoint of the world, I just went there and shared that message of unity. So workout around my day is more of encouraging women, specifically moms, but we can all benefit. And even now, like things have evolved since I've done that speech at the Lincoln Memorial. And so now there are like men that are reaching out to me either as collaborators or, as clients as well, to find out ways to support themselves, to to nurture themselves and to shut down that inner chatter and to be more present. So one thing that I do sometimes in my business is I have challenges. In April, we had a sugar-free challenge. It was a Ditch the Sugar challenge. So on my website, there's a link that says free challenges. And at the bottom, you'll see that Ditch the Sugar challenge. But the challenge that's starting tomorrow on May 22nd is the gratitude challenge. And, being grateful is, it's the difference between being a healthy person, or a not healthy person. And it's really a mindset issue. So when you're not grateful, you're worried about yesterday, tomorrow, the next minute, but you're never really present in what's happening. And you never really reflect on the fact that you have a choice. You don't have to, um, react. You can stop and choose to just be. And this is something that, it's only 5 days because, challenges are just enough so you understand what it feels like. But, after the 5 days, I work with you individually. I have, if you go to the work with Cordelia, you'll see the options there. But I really like to do the power hours when I work with people, and especially on something like their inner chatter. Um, I've tried to design a program for that, and it doesn't, lend itself to an online program because there's nothing. It's something that is very individual, and I mean, I do have like a chaos to calm program, which is close but not quite, um, you know, as far as helping you with your gratitude specifically, but it'll definitely calm down your inner chatter. And then I have a course that I'm revamping, is not available right now, but it was the Take Care of You course. And that really delves deeply into specific ways to work on that mindset and that inner chatter. But anyway, I really like working with people one-on-one because in the power hour sessions, I learn so much. And that's really where, if once I nail down exactly what I want to revamp with my Take Care of You course, that's how I get that information. The juices start flowing when I work with people one-on-one. So I really look forward to that. But there are a lot of other things, that I do. Obviously, I work with people for, they come to me because they want to lose weight, right? and then I help them with that, either working one-on-one or with I have two levels of that program. I have a 3-week ditch after the Ditch the Sugar Challenge. It's a beginning steps to a lifetime of wellness, and it basically takes you from just starting out with the basics of understanding what you really need to keep on hand as far as food, some recipes, some different ways to move, and those kind of things, and then kind of progressing over time. And of course, it's supported with a Facebook group, which is the Sugar Free Sisterhood. And I have a free group, which is my Stress Free Sisterhood, and anybody can really join that. And all these challenges are open to people in the Stress Free Sisterhood also. But to get the actual content, it's emailed to you. So in the Stress Free Sisterhood, we just support each other. So, like today is Sunday, so I encourage them to step into their greatness for this week and plan on what's their intention and how they want to feel. And then, like on Wednesdays, it's Breakthrough Wednesday, and Friday is Party Friday. What did you overcome and what did you embrace new for yourself this week, kind of thing. So, and I go in there and I do lives and we talk about things close to our hearts. So, I really like that one. I also have a local moms group, and we meet monthly, usually at Busboys and Poets, because I like places that have non-GMO, sustainably sourced food, and basically clean food. So we'll go to Busboys and Poets and meet for a couple of hours for lunch and talk about things close to our hearts. And we have this month we did our nutritional type. These women are so brilliant. Some of them are like doctors, or they may have had issues with their leaky gut or something like that. And so it's just really great to talk to them. There are also people that come that are not so much in touch with their nutrition and stuff. And but we all are there because we want to nurture ourselves and each other. And sometimes we have, other talks. We talk about other things close to our hearts. So, but everything I do in the Stress Free Sisterhood and in my local Self Nurturing for Moms is really all about just reflecting and being present and tapping into the inner wisdom, which comes as an awareness and your fulfillment with the knowing, stepping into the knowing of that it's not bad, it's an opportunity. It's always an opportunity, no matter what. And you don't see the glass as half full or half empty, but only and always as brimming with a complete fullness. And so that's what I really, that's the energy that I really share with my sistren and brethren, whenever the opportunity presents itself. More and more these days, I've been working with men. Although, as you can see by my website, that's clearly not my intention. And also because some of the topics that I cover, I wouldn't really know too much about it as far as men go. But, and also, women, of course, are close to my heart because we are so good at not taking care of ourselves, and I just really want to encourage more women to take care of themselves. But I'm not, closing the door on working with, men as well. And so, so yeah, that is me in a nutshell. At the beginning of my business, I was going to help everybody, all women from all in all stages of their lives. And that I put that nutritional hacks for pregnancy out there. I'm also reworking it, and I'll probably relaunch it this summer. I just have it out there as an ebook. I may have already taken it off my website, but I'm going to relaunch it as an actual book. I've had an actual doctor who suffered from postpartum depression. She actually reviewed my book and gave me a testimonial. And one of the recommendations was that I produce it as an actual hardback book. So I'm going to do that. Like I said, probably in the summer at some point this year. And so again, I don't offer that as a service anymore, working with pregnant moms or postpartum moms. But of course, in either case, if you have nutritional challenges during your pregnancy or you are trying to lose weight after your pregnancy, clearly I am open to working with you. And I've been there several times. Although I have 6 children, I had 2 miscarriages, so I've had 8 pregnancies. And, definitely I can support you in that journey as well. So, yeah, that's pretty much me work out around my day, everything I do. And to answer your question, Andrew, I'm not a household name yet, but I'm definitely working on it in every way that I possibly can. So, I, like I said, I'm looking for local speaking opportunities, and I also have workshops. Usually, for this month, I'm done. Next month, I'm not having a workshop, but I will be in Silver Spring at Something for Empowerment Women International. They have an annual conference, and I'm a featured author there. So I'll be doing that on June 4th from 12 to 5. And then at the end of the month, I'll be actually with my publisher. She is going to be given an award, and she's offered the opportunity for me to host her here. But we'll be meeting in Sidamo in Baltimore, near Baltimore, and I'll speak, briefly again on health and nutrition and supporting people. So, yeah,
Very, very
that is
interesting and very interesting and
what I've got
enlightening.
on the horizon, and I don't really have anything planned for the summer. I may do some webinars here and there, but I'll pick it back up in the fall. So that's about it, Andrew.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great! Because for a moment I tried to talk and I didn't know if you heard me there. Yes, that was very enlightening. I had absolutely no intent in interrupting you for about the 55 minutes that you were talking. That was very heartwarming and all. And since you got your faith out, it's a hard question for me to ask, but it's a fair question nonetheless because a lot of people sense a paradox in this. I mean, you have the right to choose your own religion. Bless the founding fathers for putting that in the First Amendment. But every religion has their own consciousness suppressing tools, and the Islamic faith, many would assert, is kind of notorious for suppressing the divine feminine. So how can you be a Muslim and yet do all the work that you do to try to empower women? It seems like such a paradox. Can you help make sense of this?
I love your question. Thank you for that. Absolutely. This is one of the other misconceptions. So, you know, the hijab is seen as a sign of oppression, um, and Islam is seen as a religion that oppresses women. But here's the news. Newsflash. So, 1500 years ago or so, in Saudi Arabia, women were oppressed, but not because of Islam. They were seen as like nothing. And if girls were born, they were buried. And those are all old cultural things. So when Islam came to Saudi Arabia, and women were walking around scantily dressed and all that. But when Islam came to give dignity to women, right? there are two verses in the Quran that talk about protecting the modesty of a woman, right? Because we think of the Arabian woman with the belly dancer or whatever, and that was the norm. Women scantily dressed, they were just pieces of flesh and property. But to encourage women to be seen as human beings and to protect their dignity, this is the purpose of hijab, so that you see a woman's knowledge, not her body. You don't judge her on how long her hair is, how many curves she has, or how well she can shake her hips, but the actual fruits of who she is as a human being by speaking, right? And sharing her intelligence. And that is actually what Islam brought to that particular culture. And a lot of the Muslim scholars are actually women. What we don't hear about is that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had many wives, but not necessarily all of them at the same time, because some of them died. And the ones that he did have, they were the scholars, and they were the ones that documented a lot of his sayings, because as you know, he was illiterate, but they were all highly intelligent and very much literate. So it was thanks to his wives that the Quran was even documented, because they were the women, they were the people, they were the brains behind the man. And the other thing about Islam is it encourages, one of the first verses that were revealed was to read, right? And, there's a whole story about that, but I'll just kind of give you a synopsis. So Muslims are encouraged to read and study and to, find out more about how we can propel and support humanity. And many of the people that took that very seriously were women. The woman who created the astrolabe, which is now our watch, she also created the first university in the 8th century in Morocco. Okay, she was an heiress, and she had a lot of money, and she was really smart, and that's what she did with her money. She wanted to make sure that generations after generations would be educated. So this is the same thing like what I was saying about how, as a sign of oppression during slavery, the slave owners made women dress a certain way and cover their heads. This is even during that time, women in New Orleans, the black women, there was a law, I forgot the name of the law, but they made a law where they had to cover their hair. And it was because the white women were jealous of the black women and seeing how beautiful they were. So they wanted to keep them in their place, even though some of them were really rich. And so they made this law of they had to cover their hair. And, it wasn't a sign of oppression for the black women, because they were like, oh, well, the culture we come from, we wear these elaborate headdresses, and, and they got very artistic with it and creative with it. So it's the same thing, most of the world outside of the heart of where Islam is from, they are patriarchal societies. And when you see the world through your own lens, you're going to misinterpret what you're seeing, right? So if you come from an Islamic perspective and you come over here, you can also misinterpret what you're seeing. It just depends on your filter. So according to the people that are viewing Islam from the outside in, rather than opening their hearts, remember with my thing about unity, instead of opening their hearts and saying, wow, look at that different culture. That is amazing. I wonder what that's about. It's, oh my God, what a horrible culture. Why would they do that to their women? All our women have all their clothes off. Why do they make them wear all that stuff and it's 120 degrees there? Well, scientifically, we now know that if we walk around naked in the sunlight, that we what? Get skin cancer. So if you live in a place that is 120 degrees, you probably need to cover your skin, you know? So, but I appreciate that question. So, and that is actually what drew me to Islam because I was kind of at odds. You know, you grow up in the church, and, you know, my family, we have been Episcopalian for centuries. You grow up in the church, and there's this double standard, right? You have to be a good Christian girl, but, and you can't date, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. But then, you know, you don't want to be too shy, and, then you're a prude, and, you know, so there's a lot of, what do you call those? There's a lot of confusion I found in Christianity, but in Islam, everything is very clear and very supportive of women and very, you know, it's like, I want to know who you are. I don't care about what your body looks like. Do you have a brain? And that was like, wow, that's, you know, that was a big draw for me. So,
Okay, if that's the way you see it, fair enough. Question about the thing you said about the sun. Are you sure about that? Because I mean, I'm an avid sun gazer, and I can tell you what we've been taught about looking at the sun hurting your eyes is a bunch of bull crap. Don't tell that to my mother, who's an ophthalmologist. She houses me like crazy. But it's been said that some people in the alternate fields have said that uh, the gamma rays don't do what we're led to believe it does. Ultraviolet doesn't do what we're led to believe it does, and what we perceive as skin tan is actually toxins being brought to the surface and being taken out of your body, and people, the powers that be, have tried to mislead us into thinking that that's harmful when, well, it's not. Although, what about sunburn? Is that maybe a sign that you're getting excessive sunlight? Because I mean, some say too much of even a good thing is a bad thing, and maybe sunburn is a sign you're taking this to an extreme and you should stop. But this whole debate about whether the sun is harmful or not, it seems like we'll never be able to settle it. But do you have any comments now that I brought this up?
I'm not a scientist. What I do know is there are certain times of day when you should be exposed to sunlight, and definitely you do need sunlight, right? Because we all need vitamin D. It definitely supports our muscle and bone growth. And so that is the extent of my knowledge and sunlight and times of days that you should be exposed to rays. And I don't even remember if they're gamma rays or which rays they are, but there are certain hours that I believe it's like somewhere between sunrise and 10 a.m. You should be in the sun, and then sometime after the sun has declined, after it's reached its highest point, it started to decline between that time and the sun actually setting. Those are the best times to go out and get sunlight. However, when the sun is approaching its highest point during that time of the day, that's the worst time to be outside. And while you may get your vitamin D, you probably want to cover your skin for most of the time that you're exposed during those hours. And that is the extent of my knowledge. That's very interesting points that you make about when you see the skin tanning, that is the toxins surfacing. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I'm not here to dispute that fact at all. But I have to say for myself, I grew up in Atlanta a lot of my youth, and when it was very hot, my skin did burn. And now that I cover, even in the summer, when I cover my skin, I'm significantly cooler than I was. And I've even, like, you know, I went to Bangladesh. It's definitely hotter there than it is in the DC metropolitan area. I obviously was hot, but I think I would have been a lot hotter without being covered. That's just from my own personal experience with covering and not covering and being in the sun.
Thank you. And about pregnancy, for those that don't understand the science behind how this works, how can a baby that weighs an average of 7 pounds 7 ounces at birth cause a woman to gain over 20 pounds during pregnancy? What's the science behind that for those that don't understand it? Could you explain that?
Yes. So the 7 pound, that's the average weight for most babies. That's just the baby. But then there's the amniotic fluid. Then there's the placenta. There's the blood flow of the mother actually plays into some of the weight. And let me just, I can tell you categorically, there's actually, yeah, anyway, so basically there's those things. And then above and beyond that, there's going to be other fluids that, other fluids and other fats that, the woman's body needs just, for additional protection for the baby. But that's the main thing. So at minimum, you would have 25 pounds. And that's exactly what I gained with my daughter. My first child, I gained 25 pounds. And then, yeah. And it all depends on what you're eating too, which plays into how much you're going to gain.
Thank you. And as far as what age is safe to be pregnant, I believe I remember reading in the Guinness Book of World Records that the youngest age that was confirmed a woman was pregnant was at the age of 9, and the oldest was some woman who was 59 years old. But when it comes to women being pregnant after like the age of 40, some people say that's not particularly safe. And on the flip side, what about men? I mean, some people say, well, sperm is sperm. It's not like the baby's going to have any problems because the father is of an older age or a younger age for that matter. But is there any is that a misconception? Perhaps could it be more dangerous for an old man to impregnate a young woman simply because the age does cause the sperm to have potential problems for the child? So to make sense of this, what age is safe to be pregnant and for a man to have sex, and does sperm like change with age and all that?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that question, but I'm not a doctor, but I have an answer for that. I did find the page in my resource here about your other question. So 7.5 pounds baby, 2 pounds amniotic fluid, 1.5 pounds placenta, 2 pounds uterus, 2 pounds breast, 4 pounds body fluids, 4 pounds blood, and then 7 pounds maternal stores of fat, protein, and other nutrients. So that is where that weight comes from. So the other thing is, my dad was 61 when I was conceived. My mom was 39. And so, a man can safely, as long as he's healthy. See, my dad, he exercised, like walked 20 miles a day, ate really well, and all those kind of things. So a healthy man, right, who takes good care of himself can produce good quality sperm, and a healthy woman, same thing. I was the last of 4 children, can have children as long as they're in good health and taking care of themselves. Even if this is your first time having a child as a woman, if you're 40 years old and you made other choices and you said, you know what, I'm 40 years old, I want to have a kid now, there should be no harm as long as you are you're on that healthy spectrum and you've been taking care of yourself leading up to the pregnancy. And it usually takes about at least 12 months to get your body in order to conceive. Now, where there's a problem is if you're someone that doesn't have the best health practices, you don't exercise, you don't eat that well, and the same thing with the man. If you don't exercise, you don't eat that well, you drink a lot, you eat junk food, you don't cook, you don't get sunlight, you suffer from, depression, you're on a lot of medication, probably, definitely you want to touch base with your doctor before you think about conceiving on either side. There have been studies that say that men over the age of 40 would contribute to children being having mental problems or autism or something like that, I I'm not autistic. So, that wasn't my case. So it's just a very individual thing. If you want to have kids late, just make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're in constant contact with your doctor.
Thank you. And another controversial subject, abortions. Now, I am totally indifferent when it comes to abortions in the sense that I'm not going to totally go against a woman if she decides to get one. And if it's a friend of mine, I'm willing to support her. I knew a woman who wanted to get an abortion back in 2006, and I donated her a little money to be able to pay for it. And I don't feel any guilt or shame about having done that when she got the abortion done. But those, I'm sure that some people who really wanted, who are really anti-abortion, would assert that you're going to create bad karma for yourself if you get an abortion and such. So, well, I mean, you can't deny that Planned Parenthood, people that work there, yeah, they may have good intentions, they may be good people, but they don't really realize that they're working for an organization which is conspiring to commit eugenics and depopulate the world. So that's an unfortunate thing that they don't realize that, but that's kind of a side issue. The point is, abortion, whether or not getting one is gonna. Well, first of all, what harm can it do to a woman's body if she gets an abortion? Does it really complicate the chances of causing complications for future pregnancies? And is there any sort of karma that people have to worry about if they choose to get one?
So I don't know anything about karma. So I don't know how that like, would play out spiritually. On a different level, though, as a woman, spiritually, whenever you conceive, um, or I guess scientifically, whenever you conceive, there have been studies that prove that even if you get an abortion, the stem cells of the baby will still be in your body and can come to your aid one day if you ever have some kind of disease or whatever. Even if you have a miscarriage, the stem cells of those babies are still part of you genetically, and they can help you to stay younger, longer, and those kind of things. So I don't know that it would ever be a harm to you physically. It just depends on the practitioner. If they screw up, right, and mess up things for you, then maybe you won't be able to conceive if they do the wrong thing. That's the only thing I can think of. Even in Islam, if there is a financial problem or a medical problem or a mental problem, if you become pregnant, you can get an abortion, or I mean, it's obviously discouraged for the most part, but if you are mentally ill and you cannot raise a child and you become pregnant, you can have an abortion because it's going to be a detriment to you and to the world, right? So, but if obviously it's prevention is always better than oops, I made a mistake, right? So, if you know, I mean, sometimes it's outside of your control. If you're mentally ill, someone may take advantage of somebody. Let's just be realistic here. It does happen, right? So, but that's my understanding of, what you're asking me about.
Thank you. And talking about milk for babies, the best milk for babies is obviously mother's milk, but some women would choose not to breastfeed because, well, they make a bad choice of being a drug addict, and that could cause the drugs to get into the breast milk. In which case, it's not in their best interest to let the baby breastfeed. So, excuse me, not to breastfeed the baby, but if you know anything about that, I'd like you to give your take on what's the science behind taking drugs and how it can get into the baby, and also other substances that are not quote unquote drugs or controlled substances and all. But also, some research has also come out that suggests humans are really not supposed to be drinking cow's milk or taking dairy products. Our bodies really aren't compatible with it. We should really be getting our calcium from leafy green vegetables. The event is coming soon. YouTube channel did a great video on that in the not too distant past. So this whole thing about if you're like taking drugs and all, what do you not breastfeed, and this general thing on cow's milk for babies and humans in general. What's your take?
Yeah, another great question. So, yes, the harmful chemicals that are in the mother's body definitely pass straight into the milk, which was, remember, I was given a prescription myself for an antidepressant, depressant, and I chose not to fill that prescription because of that. And even though she swore it was a low dosage, I'm not stupid. Everybody knows that anything in any dosage is going to get into your baby, period. So, in my case, I decided to change my diet and find something that would support both me and the child. So, if you have, you know, high levels of, you know, toxins in your body, substances, alcohol, whatever it is you're doing, then absolutely yes, breastfeeding is probably not the best for that child because they're already trying to overcome whatever it is, whatever trauma the toxins that were in your body during their gestation presented. So to help them to heal their gut and their brain, you probably would want to give them something more like um, almond milk or any of the, like hemp milk, those kind of milks, or even oat milk. They would have way more nutrition. Um, Even there are herbal concoctions that you can give to babies that would be substantially more nutritious than that particular mother's milk. There's also something that many women may not be aware of, but the local La Leche Leagues these days, and that is an organization to help women to learn how, they're basically lactation consultants, and they help new mothers to support their milk supply, or just help them to do the basics of getting their child to latch on. So sometimes women can't produce milk at all, and they have banks, milk banks. So other mothers who have too much milk donate to these milk banks, and babies also have access to other mothers' milk. So that's also an option for anyone, in that situation who, is a reformed drug addict, just had a baby, and they're like, oh, wow, I want to nurse my baby, but I can't because my body's detoxing. They can go to La Leche League and get some human milk for their baby, so that's another option. On the topic of milk, cow's milk, yes, I absolutely agree with that. My kids, after they weaned, I did not, after the first two, because with the first two, I was learning a lot, but after um, my second child, I learned more about milk and, you know, if it's of great nutritional value or not. So milk has a purpose in life. It can, in certain situations, be a medicine for the body. But when you think about it from that perspective, if it's a medicine, you don't take penicillin every day, right? So it's like that, you only take it when you need it. Definitely better sources of calcium are dark green leafy vegetables and about like 50 million herbs I can think of. So, and you can also, get other sources of calcium from nuts and seeds. And a lot of people don't realize that because we've really moved away from eating nuts and seeds and really basic things that are very, very easy to digest and, plentiful. They're just plentiful. I don't, but we're stuck in this, we have to have milk. Babies have to have cow's milk. And, that is really about, that is that's part of the consumerism that is part of our society, right? the let's just face it, the beef industry makes lots of money. And, so we got beef, right? And we got milk. And, so they have to push all that stuff on us and tell us that we need it so that we buy it and they keep making money. That's really what the you need cow's milk is about. You don't even need beef. In fact, beef is the most, you didn't ask me that question, but beef is the most vile meat you can eat. And in the Islamic tradition, there are two times of the year that we should eat meat, and that's during the two Eids, the one after Ramadan and the one after um, the uh, the Hajj. And because the rest of the year, your body, after the both in both cases, whatever meat's available, you should eat it sparingly because meat isn't, really good for the body actually. So, but I'm just rambling now about the beef. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I still eat meat myself. I'm sure I'll never be able to quit meat, I think, but my meat eating habits have gone down and down and down and will get closer and closer to zero without ever actually reaching zero. But as the Earth's vibrational frequency increases, we will become less meat eaters, more closer vegetarian diets, and consequently, I have been eating less, so I'm sure that it'll happen over the course of time. Yeah, when I had Stuart Swerdlow on my show, he actually went over the edge and said, "You got to eat red meat, or you're going to have a lot of health problems and such." And I'm thinking, yeah, right. There's a lot of people who don't eat red meat that can find ways of avoiding those health problems that you assert would happen if you don't eat them. But yeah, I think many people can disagree on that one. But anyhow, one thing, since you're really big on empowering women, let's get right to the crux of the problem in regards to what causes women to have a lot of problems in this world. A lot of things to suppress the sacred feminine, like in the Spanish language. I remember how in grade school, learning masculine, feminine in Spanish, and the teacher was like, even like you always. It's masculine dominant, even if there's like only one man in a crowd of 500 women, you still use the masculine terms. And some of the girls were like, why is that? And one of the boys said, because men are superior. No, dumbass, it's because there's a conspiracy to suppress the sacred feminine. That's the real reason why something like that happens. But that's a little side issue. The big crux of the problem when you talk about sacred feminine being suppressed is the moon. Definitely an artificial body up there. I'm not going to go over all the proof of that, but I could go on and on with that to show that it definitely is artificial. And if you can't believe that because you can't handle the truth, well, sucks for you. But the moon, as George Kavassilis has asserted, is the ball and chain around Earth's feminine energy. I don't really know what kind of problems women have with it. I can't because I'm not a woman, but sometimes I wish I was a woman so I can feel the pains that you have to go through. But when it comes to the problems that the moon causes in regards to the moon cycles interfering with women's menstrual cycles and all the rest of it, do you have anything to say about that, and can you maybe offer some solutions for how we can avoid the moon suppressing the sacred feminine?
Hmm, interesting. So I wouldn't say that the moon suppresses the sacred feminine. I don't know if you're familiar with Susan Weed, but she like has a whole philosophy about the sacred feminine and how to be one with nature and the moon cycles and starting from puberty all the way through menopause, how if we just tap right back into our sacred feminine wisdom, right? Then we will really benefit from what nature has to offer and has provided. Um, yeah, Susan Weed is a really good source. But so what I would say is, and what I practice for myself is I've mentioned herbs here and there, and so part of my heritage is Native American, so I grew up using certain herbal remedies, and so for example, red raspberry, alfalfa, oat straw, and nettle. These are really, this is a nice loose leaf tea, herbal tea mixture that I give my girls, I mean, even before they hit puberty. And it just is a softer introduction to the, the menstrual cycle. And so when they hit puberty, it's not, I suffered a lot. When I was growing up, um, I didn't really grow up with my grandmother, so my mother, had kind of moved away from all that, and we were, popping, or she was open to, oh, just use Tylenol or whatever. So, as a result, I didn't, women are not really nourishing their bodies going throughout their lives, especially during their menstrual cycles. And that is really the cause for, I was anemic, and it's also a cause for, hold on just a minute.
Hear a baby cry in the background.
Yeah, my baby, she's coming to me. Hold on. Hey, Mama. I'm on my interview still. Yes. You want me to come downstairs?
I hope I didn't lose you. Um, Still connected to her over the phone. I think she just took her headphones off there. How fitting that we're talking about this. And
Did you hear all that?
yeah, well, you took I think the headphones off for a moment. I was saying how
Yeah.
fitting it is that we're talking about this, and I hear baby cries in the background. So, yeah, go ahead. Did you lose your train of thought? I think
No,
okay.
it just proves that, the babies, they're really in tune with their mothers. But she actually, I weaned her. Um, she just turned 3, so I weaned her in March. So, but we're still connected, and that's one connection that moms have with their kids, I think, especially if you nurse them. But so using this mixture of herbs is really beneficial, and it prepares the body, and it actually supports the blood flow and loss of blood during this period, and strengthens and tones the uterus, and it actually makes the the sacred feminine stronger, and a lot of these herbs they're high in iron and phosphorus and all the things that support the muscles that are used, and of course the production of blood and all those things. So basically train. This is another part of my business that I eventually want to get to, but right now I'm working it out. I'm practicing on my daughters. I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So all my girls. And what I do is I give them this herbal mixture, um, but I make sure I give them a different combinations of herbal mixtures, but leading up to their cycle, and I teach them to document their cycles so they'll know when it's coming on, so that at least 3 days before they start taking this drinking this tea, a couple of times a day, and so that it's a very seamless process. And some women, and I was one of these people when I was growing up, like the first 2 days of my menstrual cycle, I just couldn't function physically or any other way. So one of my daughters, she just got back from her soccer game. She's a traveling soccer player, and she can't afford to be down, and she never has been. So it's just a way that we as mothers, or we as women, need to learn to be part of what's going on with our femininity. And the other beauty of that is, as a mother, if you teach your child, if you teach your daughter about the amazing mechanism that is her reproductive system, then she'll make better choices, and it won't be like a lot of women wonder and worry and wring their fingers and hands about, their daughter getting hooked up with the wrong guy. But if you teach them that they're amazing, and the word that is out there these days, but they're goddesses. I don't really like that word personally, but they're amazing spiritual human beings, and that's really what your uterus is. It's like the portal between this world and the spiritual world. I can say that firmly, having 6 children, because definitely going in a transition, when that baby comes into the world, you feel like you're not here at all. So it's definitely a spiritual portal. And even Susan Weed, completely different religion and understanding of spirituality, but she agrees that the womb is a spiritual portal between worlds. Collectively, any woman, those kind of women that study those things, if you read any of their stuff, it all lines up in any religion, whatever. It's a spiritual portal, and that is where we've lost ourselves. We're not connected to, and we don't value that we are the spiritual portal between worlds for humanity. How much of that did you hear?
I heard the word humanity was when it stopped, and yeah, the Skype recorder stopped, but it started again. So I'm just gonna have to combine the two separate recordings here into one. Did you just accidentally hang up, or was it a glitch that
No,
caused
it
it?
just popped me off.
Oh, okay.
I didn't do anything.
I didn't do anything either. So, oh well,
Okay.
whatever. Skype gremlins or something. All right, but anyhow,
They're after you.
yep. Okay, but anyhow, getting back to what I said earlier about drugs during pregnancy, a little bit of controversial debate here as to ignoring the fact that the government has labeled cannabis a controlled substance, or should I say marijuana a controlled substance. Marijuana is commercial, cannabis is not, but that's a side issue. Is it safe for a woman to smoke cannabis to like help her get through the pains of pregnancy? Some would say, well, the problem with that is the baby is more likely to be addicted to cannabis if it smokes it um, when it leaves the womb. When you smoke cannabis during a pregnancy, you'll have a more likely to be a cannabis addicted child. But is that really something to be too concerned about? I mean, are there some health benefits that could come from women smoking cannabis, or even eating cannabis, like in brownie form, for example, when they're pregnant with a child?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question in stages. So first of all, um, cannabis is better not smoked. Second of all, um, it's also something that a lot of studies have shown you cannot be addicted to. Um, and third of all, I, again, going back to the teachings of like Susan Weed or Sarah J. Buckley, who's an Australian GP, and some of the other, Maha Al Musa is another person from Australia. These are like natural birthing advocates. If, again, you support your reproductive system the proper way and you embrace all the things that make you present during the labor and delivery process, the use of, pain control isn't needed. You don't need to, you don't need an epidural, you don't need cannabis, you don't need to drink wine, none of those things. You can you know, just tap into your inner wisdom and embrace, your spiritual portal position in the world and just, birth in that way. So, yeah.
Thank you for your take on that. Uh, Looking at your site here, I see you have a few things here about gratitude. Now, gratitude is one of those things you definitely should feel and have if you really want the law of attraction to manifest in your life. But some people don't really know the best ways to go about doing this. I mean, during some meditations that I do, like the free flow meditation, which is narrated by Natalie Ledwell, near the end of the meditation, she says this is extremely important. Feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for everything in your life. And I hear that and I say, okay, well, great. How exactly am I supposed to feel gratitude? It's not just saying in your mind, I am grateful for this, I am grateful for that because it did blah 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 in my life, which helped me do blah blah blah. I mean, how exactly are you supposed to feel gratitude? So help people out that don't know how they are supposed to feel gratitude. Any advice?
Right. So it's definitely a process. Okay. So gratitude is you're right. It's not so simplistic as saying I'm grateful this, I'm grateful for that. It's more of a an understanding of you make a choice in situations, right? So in my gratitude challenge, I take people through 5 days, and the first day, it's all about the theme of reflection, and then presence, and then wisdom and awareness and fulfillment. So you have a choice in every situation. So let's say that you're at work, your boss is like, if you don't get this project done today, I'm going to fire you. So you have a choice in that moment to like freak out and get stressed out and say, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job, right? Or you can, lash out, or you can just say, thank you very much, and get to the business of what needs to be taken care of in order for this project to happen, and be grateful that you're wise enough to know how to do your job well enough to expedite this, to meet that deadline. Okay. So that that is a choice. You don't have to be reactive. You can just have a presence and awareness that I'm capable of doing this job, and just filter out the fact that you know your boss may have chosen the wrong way to go about impressing this deadline upon you. So it's like, probably didn't have to say all that about I'm going to be fired and whatever, but you just focus on what's important and what your supervisor said, and just leave all the rest. That's gratitude. You stay present in the moment. That's gratitude. Not worrying about, oh my God, what if I don't finish this by the end of the day? Or, oh my God, why didn't I do this last week? What happened, it already happened. And what hasn't happened, it hasn't happened yet. And you can control what does happen as long as you stay with us right here in the present, and stop and use all of your resources, your energy towards it.
Thank you. And speaking of energy, you have some energy tips on your blog, and some people have different advice on what's the best way to get energy. I mean, when it comes to well, first of all, weight loss, they say when you want to lose weight, don't cut out fat, cut out carbs. Your body needs fat to a great extent, but that's kind of a side issue from energy. When it comes to getting energy, caffeine is one of those things that a lot of people take, but if some say if you know it's good for you, try to cut down on the amount of caffeine that you take, and hopefully eventually you can stop taking it entirely. There are some other stimulants out there like theobromine, for example, a supplement I take called Brain Force, which is a nootropic of sorts. It contains theobromine in it, which is said to provide the stimulating effects of caffeine without the negative effects. Um, and of course, different foods offer energy in different ways. Complex carbohydrates are definitely better than simple carbs. When it comes to energy, the simple carbs give you a nice burst, but then they give you a crash, which is worse than what you were before. Complex ones won't really do that. But and advice on how to get energy, and for those that are hooked on caffeine and feel it, they need to use it as a crutch to get through their lives. Do you have any advice on how they can cut back, and what they can do instead to get some energy?
So yeah, there's some real basic things you can do for energy. Um, I'm going to address the caffeine issue first of all. So once upon a time, I did drink lots of coffee, but it has, anything in excessive amounts is bad for you. And what I've found is the best source of energy, if I'm going to use caffeine, is to actually nourish my body first with food. So um, even if I don't have my regular 6 hours of sleep, because that's all I need, let's say I had 3 or 4 hours of sleep, I will start my day with a breakfast that has, like you mentioned, the complex carbs. So in this case, I would usually have like red banana with hemp seeds and avocados and maybe some egg or a simple salad, like dark green leafy vegetables mixed in with cilantro and carrots and stuff like that. So you see, I have a combination of complex carbs and fats, good fats, right? So I'm filling up my body with that. Then I'll drink water, right? Or I may even start out with warm cup of water. And after my body is full and I'm feeling like my engines are burning, right? Then I have a shot of espresso, and that will be my caffeine for the day. And I'm usually good after that, even if I've had 3 hours of sleep, because the combination of breaking your fast, eating breakfast is very important. And I say that all the time. So, number one thing for energy, eat breakfast. After you eat breakfast, it's fine if you're not an espresso drinker, but have 1 cup of coffee and limit the milk and sugar you put in it. I don't put any milk or sugar in my espresso, or I don't actually drink coffee anymore. Um, so that's what I have to say about starting with energy and using caffeine. The next thing would be there's natural times throughout the day where your sugar levels will decline. But that's based on what your choice was for breakfast. So if you're someone who normally snacks mid-morning, but if you ate the breakfast, like I recommended, there's an article in my blog called Breakfast of Champions, and it talks about that avocado. It breaks it down by all the nutritional value, the avocado and the red banana and all that. And if you eat a breakfast like that particular day, I had a lot of driving around to do, and I was good until 1 o'clock, and I generally eat breakfast at 6 in the morning. So if you eat something like that, you're not going to have a decline. However, if you do have a decline, the best way to check your system is to drink water, because the number one reason why our energy depletes is because we're dehydrated. So step number two is to make sure that you're hydrated. Drink lots of water. And then of course, sitting around all the time is going to make you just going to make you more tired. The body is meant to move. We're built for movement. We're not built to sit around. So the more you move, if you get up, I always recommend at the end of every hour, like set a timer for the last 5 minutes and get up and move yourself, even if you're just doing laps from your cubicle to the ladies' room or the men's room, or if you want to take it to the next level, if you are in a building that has stairs, do a couple of um, laps on the stairs. You don't have to do the whole set of stairs, but just go up 2 or 3 a couple of times and come back, or even better, go outside and get some fresh air in your lungs. And so movement will give you more energy. So those would be the top 3 things I would recommend.
Thank you. And another thing here on your blog in regards to tips, organizational tips. I have heard that one of the best times for people to organize is during Mercury retrogrades. Everybody's talking about it like Mercury retrogrades. That's when you got to be cautious and careful. But one of the things you can definitely do is try to sort out the flaws and the problems in your life, especially from an organizational standpoint. And well, this time of the year, spring, a lot of spring cleaning people will do, as they say. So it's a good time to organize things, and all in general organization brings about feelings of goodness and all, and will increase, I'm sure, the flow of positive energy in your household. So, specifically, what kind of organization are you concerned about? Please give us the advice and the tips on that.
So the organization that I'm concerned about is scheduling time to take care of yourself. And, that's the biggest thing with women. I mean, I guess everyone says it, but mostly women say they just don't have time to take care of themselves. And so organizationally, you want to clear your mind, when you start your day with a deep breathing, inhale and exhale just simply 3 times before you hop out of bed and run and do whatever else. Just sit up straight and breathe, and just getting that flow of oxygen in your brain and throughout your body, and then stand up and do it again and breathe 3 times, deep inhale and exhale. And that is taking care of yourself. That is a very great way to center yourself and get into your day in a positive mindset and thought process. When you go to the bathroom, you know, warts and all, look at yourself in the mirror and smile, and recognize the amazing individual person you are and the light and energy and gift you bring to the world, and say, I'm going to change the world today, or whatever it is that your intention is for that day. And, so, and, I always encourage for your to-do list, write it the day before, but if you didn't, no sweat. Once you get out of the shower and you reaffirm looking at yourself in the mirror that you're such an amazing human being, you know, don't do that brain dump to-do list that is just self-sabotage, because you're going to overwhelm yourself with all the things you have to do. However, write down the top 3, or type down, right? Because everybody's to-do list is not on paper anymore, but write down your top 3 things that you want to tackle. Just frame it for yourself as, these are the top 3 things that will make me feel accomplished today, right? Don't look at it as your monster or as your nemesis, but the top 3 things that'll make me feel accomplished. If I can just get these 3 things done, then I will be like on the top of the world all day. And that is a great psychology, because if you tackle those top 3 things, and when you achieve those things, you can pat yourself on the back and say, look what I've done today. And it's only 10 o'clock. I'm amazing. I knew I was amazing. I said that when I woke up, right? So then that gives you more power and energy. And just that's the way I recommend to do your to-do list. It's three things at a time, and celebrate it truly, as celebrate your achievements. So that's the kind of organization I'm talking about.
Thank you. And we got time for probably one more subject here: self care. Now, this is what I see significance about this is that it has been asserted that in order for humanity to expand consciousness and live in harmony better, we need to increase our service to others behavior. The problem, though, is that many people obsess so much about service to others that they don't really worry about service to self as much as they should, which is a problem because you got to give to get, you got to get to give. So when it comes to service to self, how do you go about getting self care, and when do you draw the line on, okay, I've done enough service to self, I can start obsessing about service to others now, and how do you know when that's the best time to start doing that?
So it has to be a balance. Everything in life needs to be balanced, right? So that's why, like I was saying, when you start your day, that's your self-care routine. That's your organizational routine. It shouldn't be one or the other. Your organization and your self-care is the same. Now that you're all built up, you go out into the world and start your day, and it's easy. It's a very seamless process to service others, because you understand that you're part of the fabric of the world, and your energy is important to support others, right? So you'll leave your room, go downstairs, and make breakfast for the whole family, right? Or wake up your kids and say, okay, breakfast is going to be ready. And you go, you make the breakfast for everyone and make sure that everyone has what they need. They have their clothes and all that. And you can do that because you're an awesome, amazing person. You told yourself that twice already, at least in the mirror, and you took the time to do your deep breathing and maybe even, some yoga or weightlifting or whatever. And then, you're built up enough that, maybe halfway through your day at work, you can do a small little workout and rejuvenate that energy again in yourself and say, okay, Cordelia, look what you've accomplished today. You did this, you did that. You got your boss off your back and completed that project, and you're not going to lose your job. Now you're up for a promotion because your boss is bipolar. And, you got soccer practices and basketball practices after work. And, you may be a little bit late, but you hooked it up that Susie's going to pick up so and so, and that you're just going to pick them up from their practice instead of have to drop off and pick up. So it's like just a balance of service and self-service throughout your day. That's the philosophy of workout around my day. You balance it. It's all integrated.
Thank you. Very enlightening, very spiritual, and like since we got 4 minutes before 3 o'clock, well, 3 minutes now. Clock just changed 2:57. Why don't you last 3 minutes? Is there anything you'd like to get out? And after that, we'll call it a day. And good luck on the rest of your future endeavors. Anything we want to get out?
Sure. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Andrew. I really appreciate it. Um, you know, I started my business, like I said, because I just wanted to really be of service to moms in particular, to make sure that they are integrating practices of self-nurturing. And I invite anyone listening who is a mother or at least a female to join my Stress-Free Sisterhood on Facebook. And you can either search Stress-Free Sisterhood or go to bit.ly/stress-free sisterhood and join and see what it's all about. It's a very loving community and a very supportive community where you just, tap into a true sisterhood where, I mean, everybody's in that group. We've got law of attraction people in there. We've got Wiccan people in there. We have like Christians in there, Catholics in there, Muslims in there, Jews in there, Hindus in there. So, we're all part of the fabric of humanity. And if we as women don't create that sisterhood that we were meant to create, then our humanity is going to be obsolete. We have to take care of ourselves, support each other, and take care of each other in order to thrive and survive.
Very, very well said. And I was a pleasure having you on. Very glad I could get you on today, so we didn't have to make you wait until the end of well, to the beginning of July to come on either Wednesday or Friday. So thank you for being available. This was a pleasure. Sorry about the little glitch in the middle of the show there where we got disconnected for some reason. No problem. I'll just make sure I connect both interviews when I upload this, which I'll have done by the end of tomorrow at the absolute latest, I hope, and I'll post a link to this on your Facebook page when I do that. So enjoy the rest of your day. Loved having you on. Good luck on your future endeavors.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye bye.